So now I'm really, really excited and happy to introduce our final committee member. I did the kids committee, surprise. Nicole Hawkins is going to be facilitating questions for our final author, Alicia D. Williams, who we are so excited is able to join us here for the end of our session and talk a little bit about yourself and a little bit about mid-air. And for anyone who's watching, especially if there's any classrooms, please feel free to drop those questions into the Q&A for Nicole to filter to Alicia. And we're so happy to have you both here. Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you, Kim, for this opportunity. This was a really great journey. I so appreciated being able to be a part of this, and Mid-Air was awesome. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Alicia D. Williams. Alicia is an award-winning author and performer known for crafting powerful narratives that offer empathy and inspiration. Her acclaimed works include Newbery Honor and Coretta Scott King, John Steptoe Award debut, Genesis Begins Again. Award-winning picture books such as The Talk and Shirley Chisholm Dared, and the National Award long-listed novel, which we are here to discuss, in verse Mid-Air. By infusing her background in drama and storytelling into her writing, Alicia creates impactful stories that resonate with readers of all ages. It certainly resonated with me. I fell in love with it. It sounded like me overhearing my son and his friends. So I think maybe the main character and his age and his experience and being a Black boy and this whole journey between childhood and adulthood is what endeared this book to me. So please talk to us a little bit more about this work.
Sure. Thanks. I don't have to pull up the PowerPoint. Thank you for having me for one. And you just made me feel good. Forgive it. I know it looks like I'm in a hotel room, but I am a nomad now, so I'm in Italy. So forgive the background right now. Thank you. I'm glad you pointed out that it felt like your son, because I was a little bit nervous on writing this story because I'm a mother of a girl.
Mhm.
And as a writer, you want to hone into the voice. And if you do it wrong, you're going to lose your readers.
Mhm.
And I was so nervous about making sure Isaiah sounded like Isaiah and Drew and the other characters sounded like themselves. This story came out of, I hate to say it, but out of pain.
Mm.
We were shut down during the pandemic, and our eyes were locked into the 8-minute video of George Floyd. And I did not watch the video, but a friend said, don't go on to Twitter. Why? I went on Twitter and the Ahmaud Arbery video played immediately. And I
Wow.
couldn't unsee that shockingness. I couldn't unsee it. And I would pace back and forth up and down my hallway just in trauma. And then I read the last words of Elijah McClain. And I could not understand why they did not pause and say, hey, this is not a criminal. Hey, this is a boy. Hey, his last words were so sincere and awkward and help out, you're hurting me. I don't eat meat.
Mm.
Just pieces of words that I just couldn't understand how they didn't see the humanness in him. And so that's how the story began. I kind of want to explore who was this boy and how come we don't see boys as boys, Black boys as boys.
Mhm.
How come they're threats? How come they're scary? How come they're monsters? And I knew I was doing a disjustice, making assumptions, and I didn't want to further traumatize the family or anyone close to that incident. So I pulled back the layers and questioned also, why do our boys have to subscribe to masculine toxicity? Why
Mhm.
can't they have emotions? I
Yeah.
was working as a teacher in a private school, predominantly white, and my kids got to have emotions. My boys got to have emotions. They got to be awkward. They got to be silly, but we didn't subscribe that sincere gentleness to brown boys. And so that's how Isaiah came about. And because I was dealing with grief, grief kind of fused this way into the story.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for that. And I agree. My son is also the age. And when we were going through this whole tragedy, I too refused to watch any videos. I refused to let that in because I knew it would have such a endearing place in my heart if I did, that I would be seeing this again and again. And I did not want to fuel myself with fear, but I also had to be mindful of what my son was watching and taking in. So thank you. It seems like we were along the same journey, and there was a powerful moment for me where these things kind of get discussed, when you're in these virtual meetings and you're coming together. And there was a question about, did we want to discuss it? And I just said no. And it garnered a lot of pushback at work. And I just said, the answer was no, because it meant something different to me. So thank you for putting our boys out in this coming of age story in a way that explores softness. Talk a little bit more about Isaiah and developing him.
Yes, I really wanted Isaiah to be a kid that we don't normally see. We don't give brown boys enough leverage to create a different sense of self. We give them a lot of times on the page, they're the same boy. And not to be judgmental, but sometimes we keep them all in a certain group and they act a certain way, dress a certain way, speak a certain way. But I knew that other boys existed, the geeky, nerdy boys, the boys who like to roller skate, and the boys who like to listen to punk rock. And I was really wanting to explore that boy on the page that doesn't often get represented. And I am big on representation.
Yes.
If you know me, I'm big on representation.
Yes.
Even in the names, I'll try to make sure, I have Abdul and Malcolm, I want names to also be important. So with that, I thought, what boy would he look like? And I remember seeing a movie called Dope back in the day.
I love
And
that.
it, so those kids who they had a rock band in that
Yeah.
movie, and they didn't care about matching. They wore Hawaiian shirts with the pants. They wore, and it wasn't about the style. They created their own style.
Yes.
And so I wanted Isaiah to be that boy who created his own style. Now, I also wanted him to be knowledgeable. I wanted a boy on the page that came from a good family,
Yes.
because we also don't see that as well. But it was so important for me to have his father, this Pulitzer Prize winning photojournalist, because we don't see that. And it was important that his struggle paralleled Isaiah's. His trauma was the same as Isaiah's trauma, as the same as Drew's trauma, but in a different way. So the parallel in that I was speaking to how they all have these traumas, but they have to find space. And what does that space look like? And so with father is like, I need a new job. I need to take time away from my family. I need to be a better dad. And to be a better dad, I need to heal because I'm seeing repetitive images. For Isaiah, I wanted this punk rocker with a beanie on, the skateboard under with his chucks and his still loving as a boy comic books,
Yeah.
right? And still having these, with a sensitive side. Me and my editor argued, how do we make sure we are reflecting the sensitive boy? And plants, caring for the earth, whether it's having a plant that you care for or being in the earth and digging inside of it. And the parallels Drew's struggle as well. So, yeah, thank
Awesome
you.
job. Thank you. I could see that too. It almost was like the difference between loving Jordans and loving Vans. That was a small like that chapter. I was like, yeah, but his whole like feeling like, I mean, everyone loves Jordans, but he preferred Vans. And it is an idea of like it's okay to have your personal preferences and to step into that. So thank you for giving him that voice and even his beanie being symbolic. Can you just talk a little bit more about the beanie and kind of like what that symbolized when he would kind of go internal and kind of lose his voice?
Thanks for pointing out that our boys are not a monolith.
Yes.
They're not. Thank
They're
you. Um, I wanted, I'm glad you said that because she kept marking beanie. Why is this beanie in this manuscript? Check it out. And I was like, no, it has to stay in this story. We all have that thing that brings us comfort. Growing up, I remember seeing kids, even in elementary, even in high school. It was a girl who would suck her finger and she would carry this piece of cloth with her. And we all accepted it, but it was one of those things that stuck with me. Sometimes we need something to ground us. And I was thinking how our nervous systems are always under attack, and we don't have anything to bring us. We may get a weighted blanket at night. We may need layers. But what is it for Isaiah that signals I need to shut myself off from the world? And what does it mean? So it's important that this beanie is given to him by his grandmother, somebody important to him in his life. And that is when she recognized that it's okay. This is your comfort. And when you're ready to come out of that cocoon, you can come out. So that beanie is like a cocoon for him. And when he is not yet ready to go, to deal with the real world, and it's a timeout. We don't give young people space to make mistakes. We don't give them space to discover who they are or how they feel. We just like the pandemic and what you said, let's talk about it. No, let's give them space. First, they need to process this. And that beanie represents processing time. That beanie represents I'm gonna close off all the outside noise, and I just need to I need to hide for a while, or I need to think for a while. I don't need to think. I just need to be. And that's what that represents for me. And it was so important that I find the struggle of putting it on, taking it off, putting it on, taking it off. And it's a victory that I don't need my beanie anymore.
Yeah, yeah. And it was beautiful when the recognition that his mom knew he needed the beanie. He was waiting for mom to kind of reprimand him in that. And I thought it was a beautiful moment when mom did not say anything about the beanie because kind of understanding that our sons need this quiet place, this place to process, not to become punitive and just like allow him. So mom recognized that and leaned into that. So the concept of midair, it kind of suggests this suspension and it felt like it was a little bit of a suspension between his childhood and high school and even the air that he was able to take up in traveling down south. Can you talk a little bit more about his journey down south?
I remember writing that scene, him not crying, like, I don't want to go. Like, I got to be a man up. I'm not allowed to cry, and my uncle's going to see me cry. And
Yeah.
or Mama, please, right? It's that I'm your baby now. Like,
Yes.
I'm not a baby, but I'm your baby. And it's the idea that mom knew was best is that you need this. You need this. And you remember, I don't know how many of the viewers know, had this experience that if you were acting up, you were sent to the family down south.
Yes.
But this wasn't you're acting up. I'm gonna send you straight down south to get corrected. This was a space of I need you to find healing. So I'm gonna have you return home because sometimes the South does represent that in a way because we came from this era of being in the South, connected to earth back then and connected to family until we start migrating and moving out different places. So the South for me was the metaphor of coming back home where healing is, because there's always those family members who didn't go and they hold down the land.
Yeah.
So mom sent him down south, even though he did not want to go. It took a moment. My idea for this was not just for him to get to know his uncle in a different way and for his uncle to pass on his learnings and his history and his aunt in a different way. But when you are removed from your environment, and especially when you're removed from being mama's baby, you're allowed to expand in a different way. And I wanted him to expand on his own terms. And there's fear in that. And there's fear in meeting new people. Sometimes we don't realize the fear of the unknown, especially kids. I don't know what's behind the closed door, so I'd rather stay here. No, I'm going to put you in an uncomfortable situation with the unknown. And there's so many unknowns from Lefty to that mountain, you're not the, and riding that bike and facing your fears and making new friends and the experiences you have in the summertime that makes you a stronger person, a better person, a more confident person, even if it's through ADD loudmouth Grady, who is just
I
unafraid.
loved him. Love Grady.
Or Bianca, who has to face her own set of challenges having vitiligo, right?
Yes.
Seeing a whole cast of other people versus with the grief that he has on his shoulder and his friend who he just messed this up and not knowing how to balance either one, how to handle this pain here and how to make up for my lack of understanding that my life is in the boat, yours is not. And I assumed, made so many assumptions. So how does he handle the world in a different way? So that in itself was just giving him space now to
Mhm.
figure things out and make his own connections to what is happening.
It was powerful. Just the whole idea of taking up space and walk the air over and over again. It was like that concept, him, the bike and the flips and all of this embracing just coming into your fullness and being okay with that. Even the beautiful way you wrote his little teen, his little crush and interest, her being someone who was different and not your, I want to say, cookie cutter example of what beauty is and what it looks like, and that he was his own person in deciding what he liked because Drew had that, back at home. He did go for that. I held my breath with the Drew character. I held my breath, wanting to know what was going on with Isaiah when it wasn't really fully revealed. And it was really, really powerful. Thank you. And Grady and all of the characters were so rich. They brought nourishing to him. They brought we want
Mm.
your well-being, but also that push and pull between dig and try to pull it out and let him grow and let him discover what he loves. Even his sense of self with his attire, the vintage shirts and the love that both parents had to kind of show up for him in this way with these gifts and what that looked like we love you, we see you, and we support you in that. He really, really needed all of those things. So let me see.
Oh, you have been really reading.
Okay, so I'm gonna be honest. I read when we started this whole All CT Reads, and it just was like, oh, I had to put it down, at first, and I don't want to reveal too much, but I went back because I wanted to go back and I wanted to really explore. But when I went back to it, I listened to it as an audiobook, and then it took on such a different, it became so real for me. Like again, the
Mm.
characters, hearing the voice, I think that is why I felt very connected to it and to Drew as well. Do you want to talk a little bit about Drew and just the difference between he and Isaiah? I know you went into it a little bit more, but I feel like he had his own things that he had to battle with because revealing what he was going through kind of makes you look at this idea of sometimes you're in a place of privilege and you don't even realize you're in a place of privilege, and you can take it for granted.
Mhm. You see that so much with the difference is a huge difference between Isaiah's lifestyle and Drew's lifestyle. Drew's in an apartment, Isaiah's in a beautiful home. Drew's father is in jail. Isaiah's working. What they're both away. So they built in a life, but you could see the bubble clearly. And I had Drew really unable to process his feelings because he didn't have space. His mom couldn't afford to give him that space. He had his brother at home, of course, with dealing with his sickness, his mom trying to hold down the fort, and his father who is penalized to be in jail for a reason that we know should not have been a reason at all, right? A lack of insurance, and that is one thing that okay, your life could change your life, and I want to make a big difference that this is a good man. This
Mhm.
family is good. So with him processing it, his way of doing it is avoidance. I just won't even talk about it. And that's why it was so important that I found outlets for Drew in a way until it explodes, right?
Mhm.
He can go and sleep in Isaiah's. That was his space.
Mhm.
Even if he didn't talk, Isaiah knew something was up. His space was that. The in the grief, we're going to do these, challenges.
Yes.
And I want it because Drew has to man up in a way that Isaiah doesn't have to man up.
Mhm. Mhm.
So Drew has to man up, but but I wanted him to just still want to hold on to the silliness,
Yeah.
the silliness of being a boy because it's there underneath. Our boys want so much attention. They want hugs. I remember
Mhm.
a male teacher talking about online saying his students, his boy students, they are emotional, but they have to have this cover and they really want hugs.
Mhm.
And that's resonated. He wants hugs, he wants love, but he can't because he's stuck in this toxic syndrome, this bubble of I got to be hard and tough. And his background was he was doing, it didn't make the book, but he was doing all of these challenges and recording them, not to impress his girlfriend, his little girlfriend,
Mhm.
but to show his dad.
Mhm.
That's why he always played that cult classic because there's a longing. They both had these longings. And Drew's longing was his dad. So he's recording their crazy antics, eating burgers till they barf, for his dad to have a semblance of when he comes home or when they have to drive 6 hours away, maybe he could sneak that phone in and he could just tell his dad, life is normal. It's okay, dad. We good. Hang in there, dad. Because those are the things he has to think about.
Mhm. 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 And
Yeah.
thank you. You did that so well. Just putting the father figures there. Because there is that again, the idea of the single mom, the single black mom, but having men who were guiding them, having, even though the dad, he was a good dad and he was wrong, accused being, I want to say in prison for something that you, like you said, you wouldn't even think. It's like, what? That whole idea of you took something so important from this young man. Had his dad been available, what would that have looked like for him? And so how his
And where was he
character,
going? He was
yeah.
taking his son to the doctors. So that
Exactly.
proves he was
So
very.
yeah, it was heart-wrenching. It was really heart-wrenching to me. But again, to have Drew be able to take up space and get it out eventually, I think that was a therapeutic moment. So I want to just go back to the beginning. I know we talked about you wanting to make sure you wrote Isaiah right. Did you choose writing it in verse for that reason? Because I think that's what made it flow for me, the way that it was written. I think young readers will gravitate toward it. Did you pick this writing style for that reason,
And you
or
tried to be my best friend.
I'm already your best friend in my head because I knew you were in Italy by looking at you on Instagram. So I was kind of quiet, but I'm trying to make this about you. I don't even want to go through the similarities. I'll DM you. How about that?
Funny. I love it. Yes, I did not. I did not set out to write it in verse. I set out and just wrote it in prose. And In fact, I repeat this story not to shame the author, the author who told me this. I repeat the story not to make anyone feel sad for me or, oh, that happened to you. But I'm going to tell you this story because I want your students to know to not let anyone ever tell them something that they cannot do.
Mm.
Never, because people will say it for whatever reasons. You don't know what that reason is, whether it's fear, whether it's trying to protect you, whether they're jealous, whatever the reason is. But never let someone tell you something that is meant for you to do that you might even just want to try to do, tell you that you can't. So when I was in school, I wanted to work with someone that was a poet, and I sent in my work. And I just said, I know I'm not a poet. I just want to learn some beautiful, how to phrase beautiful sentences. I mean, I only have a semester with you. Please help me figure this out. And that's all. I want to glean a little tiny bit, 10% if I can. And I sent my packet in of poetry and as well as my other work. And she sent my work back with the poetry untouched. And she said, I am not a novelist. I am a poet, not a novelist. Therefore, I do not write novels. You are a novelist, not a poet. Therefore, do not write poems. And I cried.
Wow.
I cried bucket tears because I was in my 40s at the time. And yeah, this is all I got going for me. I got to pay student loans back. But I'm here to learn. I was just
Right.
like, you can't tell me what to do. And I gave it up. And I was like, she's right. I'm not a poet. I mean, it's abstract. I don't know about the cascading waterfalls. I've never seen that in my life. I've never seen the horizon, mountains, and the bubbling brooks. That it was
Mhm.
too abstract for me. But I sat there and thought, this is not working. At the time, because he was dealing with his grief, he was quiet. And I didn't know how to write a quiet character. And so I scratched the computer and I got a spiral notebook and a pencil. And I said, I just I need to hear you. And the words came out. The first scene I wrote was when they were outside. It was going to be the first scene of the book when they were outside on his mom's car. If you was to be a superhero, what would you be? And it came out with a sort of rhythm cadence. And I thought, okay, Isaiah, talk to me. And it came that way. And I thought, oh wow, thank you. This is unreal. So it was honestly, it was a gift. I did not set out to do it, but I'm a writer that is more intuitive. So I listen to the character and how the character wants to honor the story being told. And I wanted to say with that, with your students, they all are poets. Because if you think about it, we grew up listening to music and I mean writing lyrics back in the day. If you're my age, you wrote the lyrics, and I would silly Denise Williams, silly me to think that I can ever have before my God. Oh, how I love you. I wrote it, and that's poetry. Kendrick Lamar
Mm.
is a poet. He's a rapper, but that's poetry.
Mhm.
When we listen to hip hop, that's all poetry. So we are all poets. And yeah, I see our time is coming to an don't see we're having a good time. I don't even know why you popped up in that little
Put
square up
me in the
there.
group chat. Put me in the group chat. Listen, I was over here talking to myself too. Like, yes, Denise, I had the cassette tape and you'd play and you'd pause and write the lyrics and then rewind and make sure you got them right. Listen, put me in the group chat. And this has been like absolutely amazing. The vibe, if you want to kick me out of the group chat, that's fine, because the vibe that you two have is unprecedented. And thank you so much, Nicole, because Alicia, Nicole's the one who put that midair up for consideration. So, I mean,
That's
she
why she
is
is my
single
best
hand.
friend.
I
I told you
know,
it
I
was.
know.
I
Come
told
on
you
over
it
to
was.
Umbria. Come on over to Italy. Come
I
on.
know.
I mean, yes, that is Nicole. So, I mean, thank you to Nicole for putting
Thank
that
you.
book up for
Thank you.
consideration. And thank you to Alicia.
Beautifully
We have
done.
discussion sets of the title at the Service Center to be borrowed. We've got an individual copy, which is checked out to me right now, but I'll return it so someone else can have it.
So,
Um,
one thing,
yeah.
really challenge your students with the gender norms.
Mhm.
Can girls do whatever everything that boys can do? They're going to say yes, but
Powerful.
can boys do everything that girls can do? They can't. So challenge them with gender norms, like Barbie and Ken. I'm just Ken. They have to fight and beach fight. I'm just Ken, and that's all boys are doing is that they have this umbrella of yes, you can be president, but you cannot have emotions. So
Mhm.
that's for our next group chat.
That was a
So
great
Lit.
point. Thank you for uplifting that because I forgot to
Yes.
talk about it, but that was a very powerful point when it was presented in the book. It made me think, you know what I mean? Like, wow, so thank you for uplifting that.
Yes, no,
thank
and
you.
absolutely. I do a lot of workshops and presentations on collection development and collection management, and particularly when talking about bringing books into our collection that feature, historically marginalized characters. How are those characters presented in the book? Do we have 20 books with basically the same character, just going through a slightly different circumstance? We need not just boys, Black boys. We need
Yes.
boys doing it all, feeling their feelings, enjoying classical music, skateboarding, roller skating, and playing basketball, right? Listening to rap and listening to, whatever.
Panic at the
We need
Disco.
Yeah.
Yes, we need to make sure that we as librarians and educators have books that show the variety of experiences that a person can have because no one group of people is a monolith. And it's
Right.
our jobs to make sure that we curate collections so that we can share that knowledge with our patrons who come into our library. So I am so happy that we have Mid-Air as a kids' primary selection for the rest of this calendar year in Connecticut so that we can elevate and amplify that story and that ideal in our state to our boys, to our
Yes.
girls, to any human being, kids, adults, right? Because it's not just kids need to know that. Adults have to amplify that message as well as they're working with children. So thank you so much. Now, if I'm worthy of the group chat, you got to throw me in there. But thank you
Thank you.
both. Thank you everyone for
Thank
coming.
you.
Thank you to our supervisor, Don Laval, who I think is in here, was the first one to say hi for supporting this program that Ashley, Kathy, and I were able to put together for you. Thank you to our state librarian, Deborah Schonder, for all of her support as we dream up these random programs. And she says, yeah, sure. We get the okay through the chain of command. And again, thank you to EBSCO and Connecticut Heritage Foundation for helping to support us bringing in these authors and purchasing these discussion sets. And thank you everybody for coming. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bundle up for the cold. And, borrow those books, read those books, and tell us how they go in your communities. Thank you, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.